All right. Meron tayong guest today. Someone that I'm not sure you really know this guy. Very obscure person. Probably our most obscure guest since Lord De Vera. No? Kasama natin si Alfonso. Alfonso, right? Alfonso.
Alfonso Tomas Araullo, sir.
Alfonso.
That is
Mari
my
Vicky.
name.
Mari Vicky Barcelona. Alam mo yung mga Espanyol na name na like Sampo, di ba? Just to
Uh-huh.
know kung ano ba talagang background mo, di ba? So thank you very much. Also known as AKA Atom, right? So actually
Yes,
later
sir.
on, Atom, no, pag-usapan natin mga atomic issues, no, a little bit physics, because I think some people may know that your background is actually in sciences, although of course, you're primarily a journalist, but this is what makes probably our podcast special. We're all over the place, but at the same time focused and in depth, no. Yeah, hindi sabog but comprehensive, no. Thank you very much, Atom, for joining us.
Of course, my pleasure, Richard. It's been a long time.
I know.
My partner in crime in Stand for Truth, formerly.
And
Um,
other things, hopefully, right?
Other things.
May mga projects, no? So this
Exactly.
time, Atom, I'll take your role, no? I'll be the one, ako yung mag-a-attack ng mga sagot sa'yo. Ako yung magmamina, no? Sa'yo. So we want to hear more from you this time. So we're going to do this long form. I know many people are excited to hear from you, your thoughts about things. You're one of the most respected journalists in the country, especially when it comes to documentary. But before going there, let's a little bit go to your background. Pardon me for this. I mean, we got to know each other in our line of work recently, but hindi ako stalker, so I really didn't try to check your background. I saw some of your pictures from Kabataan na parang pa-showbiz effect. I don't know. How did you get into this thing? How did you become a public figure? I mean, how did you start? Were you like a commercial model, or were you like in a quiz bee game or something like that? For those who may not be familiar with your background, I'm sure they're familiar with you, but
Well, let me see. Of course, it's hard to draw like a definite line separating, what you would call a private life and a public life. Um, Although I would say that I started young. Um, in the
you're still
beginning,
young. You're still young. I mean,
no, I mean I started very young.
yeah, I know. I know.
But thank you, thank you for reinforcing my ageist insecurities. No, I started when I was in grade school. So ganito yan eh, nag-aral ako sa Ateneo. Medyo napansin ng magulang ko na medyo mahiyain akong bata. So,
Hard to believe.
isinali nila ako sa tinatawag na Ateneo Children's Theater nung grade 3 ako. Kasi previously, ang club ko, science club. So, medyo full circle yun later on. But back then, they noticed na I was kind of reserved,
Introvert.
medyo introverted, mahiyain, didn't really raise my hand in class and so on and so forth. So they encouraged me, basically forced me to join the Ateneo Children's Theater. And the rest of my work on TV, I think, really started from there. Kasi Five and Up, a defunct kiddie magazine show produced by Probe Team back then, with our mother hen Cheche Lazaro as the main driver, main force. So they had the Probe Team was already a very successful program back then, and they were experimenting with this new format. Looking at the world through the eyes of kids. So they wanted to get hosts, mga kiddie hosts.
Interesting.
And they
Para
wanted
mag-reach out dun sa audience na yan, no? To reach out that specific demographic.
Yeah. Kasi ano yun eh, children's TV is it's a very specific, I would say, not just format but advocacy even. And back then, children's TV was a little bit homogeneous. I mean that in the sense na it was basically cartoons, and then you had variety shows for kids. So medyo entertainment ang leaning. Yung educational TV, definitely meron din, merong batibot. And then eventually, ABS-CBN Foundation had their own shows, yung at iba pa and so on. But those programs cater to very young kids kasi. Wala talaga nagka-cater to what you would call preteens. Yung mga
Right.
not quite toddlers, not quite very young kids, but hindi pa talaga adults. So that's what Five and Up was. So they came into town, they came into Ateneo, naghahanap sila ng hosts, nag-interview sila doon. Madali lang actually yung audition nun. Sobrang ano lang eh. Simple lang, an interview lang kami. In fact, feeling ko nga kung yung audition was anything more than just a simple interview, I wouldn't have made it eh. Kasi ano ko masyado kong mahiyain eh. So anyway, nag-interview sila, nagkwento-kwento lang ako about myself. In the process, I guess I was kind of animated when I talked about some of the things that I really, I'm really interested in, like
Science.
nature, ganyan, taking care of animals and so on. So I became a host, and basically, I would assume that would be the start of my public life, no?
Right.
Five and Up was I mean, if you ask anyone from the show, we didn't even know that people were watching. It was that kind of situation. Parang feeling namin kami lang yun, nag-enjoy lang kami. It was a very
Grasping
slow.
in the dark. Basta bahala na. Yeah.
Oh, parang, I mean, yung producers namin were also quite young. Mga newly, mga bagong graduate ng college. And then you had a group of, say, a dozen kids who were between 10 to 14 years old. Maybe a little bit younger. And yun, parang in my eyes, I was just playing around, parang nagkaroon ako ng opportunity to go to places, meet people. Like my first story was about the Science Centrum, so right up my alley, right? Parang may mga nagtumin ako ng mga exhibits, tapos nagtatanong-tanong ako ng mga questions dun sa mga adults na nandun. So yun, and I guess that was my introduction to TV. And I never really looked back since, no? Although after Five and Up kasi hindi naman talaga ako nagdire-diretso eh. Parang hindi naman yan parang artista na nag-start ako ng bata tapos nagtuloy-tuloy. Parang tumigil ako in between kasi wala naman talaga akong plano na mag-TV. Finished my education in Pisay and then UP, and then yun, after I graduated, parang I guess it's because I had idea of what it was like to work for TV, and I had this innate interest to produce these stories because of my experience as a kid. Na naging natural sa akin to go back to TV. But I remember when I was maybe around 14, 15, there were opportunities to work in TV, pero sa entertainment side, basically as an entertainer, bilang artista.
And you were not interested in that.
I wasn't really interested in that. Kasi I don't know. I guess I wanted to do a different kind of television even when I was a kid. I knew the kind of stories that I wanted to do or I wanted to be involved in. And medyo na-intimidate ako dun sa mundo ng entertainment, mundo ng showbiz. So I shied away from that. But I went back to TV when I graduated in college.
So, atong balikan natin ulit. So, you were saying your parents had concerns na medyo mahiyain ka masyado, medyo too introvert. But eventually, you kind of found your vibe, no? Na parang yung self-expression mo. Did you have this sense na there's a sense of fulfillment? I know bata ka pa or maybe your memories are not very clear. But did you have a sense that this is really what I'm supposed to do? My sense of vocation ka ba? Was that something that was building up throughout the years? As you saw people connecting to you, people appreciating nature, science, things that you were also passionate about?
Not really. There wasn't this one moment that I told myself, I found my calling. This is really, this is what I wanted to do forever. I mean, I've been in the broadcast industry in earnest since I would say 2005, 2006. So that makes 15 years. And to this day, I wouldn't necessarily say, that this is what I was born to do, in a sense. Maybe I don't believe in that in the first place. Pero, what we do defines who we are. So since this is what I do day in, day out, practically for the past decade, and a half. I mean, I've come to embrace it, and I mean, it's not a bad gig, you know. I really enjoy myself, and um, every once in a while, I kind of sit back and say, this is important work. Well, not all the time. Wala naman akong ganung.
Akong kasama, hindi na hindi na mahalaga yan. Nagtutroll lang
Yeah.
yan.
No, I mean, wala naman akong conceit, no, na isipin ko na parang
Messianic complex na
exactly na parang journalists are here to save the world. Wala namang ganoon. But parang, I mean, there have been many journalists before me and many will come after. And I really believe that the work itself is important. So if I'm given an opportunity to take, you know, get a crack at discussing important issues of the day, then I consider that a privilege. So yeah, ngayon talking to you now, I can't imagine doing anything else almost. But at the same time, it's kind of it's kumbaga ano yan eh, may dialectics involved dyan eh, kasi parang
Yes. Right.
on one hand, this is what I do and I can't imagine doing anything else. But on the other hand, you're always asking, what's the next thing? What's the next step? Am I going to really grow old as you know, as a journalist, as a reporter? So, pero you know, I mean, here I am and doing this work now.
You're meandering within your own upward wave or graph or something like that. But balik tayo ulit again. You know, of course, you also came to prominence during college days. Diliman, you were an activist, but also at the same time, you chose to go and applied physics, right? Yun ang pinag-aralan, right? So mukhang science was really something in you, right? Pisay ka, nag-physics ka, applied pang physics. You were science club already when you were a kid. So was there this thing about science that kept on calling you? Because I mean, I'm just trying to understand, how did you get into journalism so passionately when at the same time I can sense that a part of you also has this scientist in him, right? So what is physics and what was that all about? Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you put it that way, it kind of makes sense, no? Na parang from the beginning I had a fascination with science.
Right.
I guess so, pero parang I don't want to say that that's anything special eh. Kasi parang ako, I'm a big, I guess you can say that I'm an advocate in the sense about really pushing for STEM, especially especially for young students. Parang I don't think that science is a special field that only a few people get interested in. I think that all kids, if they are introduced to science, technology, engineering, mathematics, parang it would appeal to them even if they don't necessarily become a scientist or an engineer or a mathematician. Ako, ganun lang. Parang I'm just a regular kid, no? Somebody may nagregalo sa akin ng terrarium nung bata ako, isang tito ko. Nag-enjoy ako doon. You know, pag wala akong ginagawa sa school, nagpupunta ako sa garden, binabaliktad ko yung mga bato, tapos may nakikita akong mga, you know, yung mga beetles na hindi pa nagiging mature, no? So parang may knack for exploration ka that I think all kids have anyway.
Right.
So siguro what
sense
made
of wonderment, no? Yung parang ganun, yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing that made it different for me is I never got intimidated by it.
Right.
Parang there was a natural interest which is kumbaga totally normal. Siguro ang isang maybe fork in the road that happened was nag-exam ako sa Philippine Science, and by some miracle pumasa ako dun sa exam. And that's only because my sister came before me and she was also accepted in Philippine Science. And for our family, it was a big deal to get a scholarship like that kasi medyo mahalang tuition. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to move to Philippine Science. Although of course I agonized over that decision when I was a kid kasi all of my friends were in Ateneo, lahat kami papunta na ng Ateneo High School. So talagang kumbaga parang in a way parang secretly ayoko nga pumasa ng Pisay nun eh kasi para ibig sabihin nun naalis ako ng Ateneo, leave my
Right.
friends and
Yung
so on.
peers mo, no? Yeah.
Yeah, but I passed and parang I studied in Pisay and maybe that was really what cemented this whole kumbaga this whole fascination, not just a fascination by then but a lifestyle I guess no na parang science is important and parang syempre you study 4 years of a specialized high school and it's part of our contract in fact na
Right.
kapag pumasok ka sa college you have to take a science or engineering course otherwise parang may stipulation doon that you have to pay back the scholarship. I don't know if they enforce that
I don't think so because I know many Pisay
parang
people,
wala, di ba?
hindi na. Nag-econ sila or other courses, yeah.
Exactly. Kasi how do you enforce it nga naman? I mean, these are high school students.
Habulin mo siya sa Singapore or US. Ay, bayaran mo yung ano mo. Yeah.
Anyway,
di ba? I don't think Araullo went into STEM courses, right? I think he went to
Harry Roque Pisay?
I think so, isn't he? I was
I'm not
told.
sure.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll have to double check that.
Sure.
Again,
Yeah,
we're not. By the way, this is a completely non-political. It's just I'm talking about like sikat people. See?
Yeah. I mean, Jessica Zafra. Wag na tayo lumayo. Jessica is a phenomenal writer, but she's Pisay.
Right.
You know, I can, you know.
An ex of mine, she was also Pisay, but she was in Econ. That's how we met.
Exactly.
Right?
If I think about it long enough, I would think of many people who went to Pisay and didn't end up in a science course. Like ako nga eh. Hindi naman ako naging scientist, di ba? Anyway, pero
but you went to physics. Is that what really wanted? Because ako kunwari nag-exam ako, electrical engineering pinasahan ko, pero parang hindi ko ma-imagine sarili ko as engineer. It just happened, maybe math was the thing. But I said, hindi. May nagsabi, ang daldal mo. Kasi my dad wanted me dentist. Tapos yung UP Manila. Tapos engineering, parang hindi ako bagay. Alam mo naman, di ba? Yung engineering. I cannot imagine. So, you know, social sciences was really my thing. This is where I can express myself. So I'm just trying to relate my thing because I'm trying to understand also where you come from, right?
I mean, in a way, that experience, I think, is something that everybody goes through when they're picking their course in college. Kasi I think mabibilang mo lang sa daliri mo yung mga kabatch mo sa high school na sigurado na sila kung ano yung gusto nilang
yung parang they know exactly what they want, which is very rare at that age, diba?
Yeah, yung iba gusto maging abogado, gusto maging doktor. Ako hindi ko talaga alam, pero nag-aral ako sa Pisay. So ang pinipili ko mga course, science or engineering. Ang una kong ang first choice ko sa UP was Chem-Eng. When pumasa ako sa Chem-Eng, pero nung parang na-realize ko na, teka lang, ano ba yung Chem-Eng? Hindi ko pala alam kung ano yung Chem-Eng kasi nung nagbasa-basa ako ng konti, parang hindi pala ako interesado dito. So last minute, before even enrolling in UP, naghanap ako ng ibang course. Physics wasn't even one of my choices.
Right.
It was just the department
recommend
College of Science na walang gustong kumuha. The very few students wanted to take up physics. It's not even a
quite prestigious. I mean, I would say that, you know, like physics is seen like the essentially mother of all natural sciences, right? It's seen like the root, right, or the trunk of science. If philosophy,
yabang ng mga physics, ng mga physicists.
Mayabang ang mga physicists, diba? I mean, they have this messianic complex. They can solve every problem on Earth. Especially in 20th century was the century of physicists. It started with Einstein, right? Maybe pa na ngayon more biotechnology and software, computer science. But so I don't know. Maybe a part of me, hindi naman ako nag-stereotype sa'yo, but I was thinking like, if you go into physics, there is probably this sense of, I won't say messianic complex or save the world, but this sense that I'm doing something special because I'm unlocking the secrets of the universe, right? I mean, physics.
I'm not gonna lie. There's some kind of romanticism of what physics was. I mean, remember, hindi ko naman talaga alam kung ano yung physics. Ang alam ko lang sa physics yung inaral namin nung high school, which is basically mechanics, electromagnetics, na hindi naman malaliman, yung high school level. So parang what I knew about physics was basically what I watched on TV. And back then there were several documentaries on loop on Discovery Channel about, you know, Stephen Hawking, about unlocking the secrets of the universe and so on and so forth. So there was that kind of parang wow, I want to know what that is. I want to to be in on the secret. Parang ganon, di ba?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I took up physics, and I mean, pretty soon I realized that physics is number one, mahirap pala siya.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a very difficult course. Yeah.
I mean, especially for me, kasi parang I wouldn't consider myself particularly gifted in mathematics, and physics is has a lot of math in it. You know, of course, it's the kind of math that ultimately should reflect in some way in reality. Although, I mean, I shouldn't say that kasi magagalit sa akin yung mga theoretical physicists.
Yeah, applied physics ka kasi, di ba?
Yeah, you have to, in a sense, parang once you let go of what numbers mean in the natural world, that's when you start understanding what the universe is all about. Example dyan, yung imaginary numbers. Wala namang imaginary numbers in real life, di ba? Wala namang square root of 1 in real life. Pero once the mathematicians, once physicists realize that we didn't have to obsess about what the square root of -1 means in the real world, doon nila nagkaroon ng mga, equations to describe uncertainty, to describe electromagnetics, to describe light, and so on. Galing yan lahat sa ganung pag-shed ng ganung parang their shackles in a sense, no? Anyway, I mean, I digress. Pero yeah, physics was certainly a challenge for me, even if I had an inherent interest in it. Pero ultimately, I kumbaga, I hesitate to say na I enjoyed it, but ultimately I think I did.
I mean, again, in a layman's language, ano yung naging thesis mo? Yung final paper mo, about what topic? Applied, di ba? So, anong...
Yeah, so ang thesis ko is modeling. When you say modeling, as opposed to experimental physics, you try to describe a phenomenon in the real world by using a set of equations.
Parang abstract representation siya nung...
Yeah, parang sa akin it was a numerical model. So parang what I did was I made a numerical model to describe what happens when a very small particle is suspended in liquid, the size of atoms, the size of molecules. They call that Brownian motion. Kasi so when you put a molecule in water, it's constantly getting bombarded with these particles na may energy, and kumbaga you can think of it as collisions, like a lot of random collisions. And this particle moves in a certain way. So our idea was that you can shine a laser on this molecule, and depending on how it moved, it will influence the way it will reflect the laser that is shined upon it. And if you get a sensor and you read the data from that, you can tell one molecule from another just based on the reflection of that molecule that is suspended
in what field, for instance, just to concretize this for people, no, like parang in what field is that parang crucial, like in making airplanes, in making, I don't know, guns or whatever? Just for people have to have a concrete idea. Like it seems so abstract, but actually it's very relevant in certain technologies or industries, right?
I mean, ayokong I'm afraid I'm overstepping kasi it's been years.
I know you're might be rusty, but back
off the top of my head,
what were you thinking? Like,
I mean, yeah, off the top of my head, if you have a solution. And parang you want to find out what are the things in the solution, then you can shine a laser on it, and based on the fluorescence of the particles in that liquid, you can tell what is in that liquid, even if you don't quickly, without resorting to other methods that may take a longer time.
Spectral parang method, you can detect yung content. I mean, what is there in the liquid? Oh, that could be very useful in many ways.
Basically, spectroscopy. So parang sa medicine, you can use that. Baka
Right,
merong
right,
malaman mo na, ay, meron palang ganito dun sa dugo nung tao na ito.
right.
And so on and so forth. I mean, it's a pretty established field. Hindi naman we didn't discover this or
I mean,
anything.
undergraduate naman to. I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
understand what kind of piqued your interest back then when you were doing physics. But Adam, the reason I'm saying this because now, of course, I really like Isaac Asimov on so many levels, because I mean, he, for instance, used the kinetic theory of gases, combined it with reading the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, and then boom, he came out with all of this Foundation series and this wonderful novels that he has, and it's just brilliant. Yung notion in psychohistory, he kind of based that on the yung kinetic theory of gases, yung how the molecules, right? Like you cannot predict how each molecule will move throughout time. But as a group, when you have enough numbers of them, trillions of them, you can actually predict where it goes. So his idea was that in a universe whereby you have trillions of human beings, you can actually have a social science, he called psychohistory, that can actually analyze where these individuals go. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm not saying you're Isaac Asimov, but people like Isaac Asimov are also very interested in society. In your case, you were an activist also, right? Back in the days. Again, I'm not trying to impose on you something, but one of the things I understood, because a lot of my cousins are also engineering, a lot of people I studied, involved in revolutions were engineering, whether it's Egypt, whether it's in Russia, whether it's in China. I mean, a lot of leaders of China have engineering background. There's just something about engineering, probably in physics and all that may give you an idea that you can apply ideas about nature and kind of not naman socially engineer society, but actually kind of solve intractable problems in the society. Maybe I'm sounding like I'm trying to make you megalomania, but wasn't there a part of you that was trying to connect these two? Because I never said the two are contradictory, that your public role is connected to science. In fact, I'm someone who believes that everything is connected in one way or another. You just have to be able to connect the dots, right? And have an open mind, scientifically, not open-minded in that sense, right? Wag na tayo dyan kay Lord De Vera episode na yan. Descende tayo. Adam, ikaw, did you have that thing again? I'm sorry, maybe I'm psychoanalyzing you too much here, but it's just a part of me. Like, I said, maybe Adam is that kind of person. Maybe he just felt things he knows in science and all, maybe he can apply to help society overcome certain complicated problems that lawyers and us social scientists cannot probably figure out.
No, I mean, 100%.
Right.
That's why I was drawn to certain philosophy, certain ideas that proposed and put forward that society develops in a rather predictable way. I wouldn't say predictable like
my patterns.
It's not like when you drop a bomb,
random.
It falls to the earth or to the ground at 8 meters per second squared, no? But in a way, I think again, I don't want to overstep, but parang the science part in social science is precisely that, at least in my mind, that there are certain ways of explaining why things are the way they are, no? On an individual level, maybe psychology and so on, but on a level of a society, that's why it's
economics, because economics, physics, that's the
precisely
pretension, but that's the motivation behind economics, right? If you can come up with mathematical modeling to understand how markets go, although on an individual level or on a meso level, parang gulo, no? How can you predict Wall Street, right? I mean, all of these transactions. But actually, mathematically, you may have some rough idea how things are going to go. I'm just saying that, from how I understand things, yeah.
Oh, exactly. Like, for example, like historical materialism, right? That's a very Marxist theory.
Medyo pretentious, but let's not go there. Yeah, okay, yeah.
But I mean, the reason why I liked reading it was because parang all of a sudden, parang this chaotic world was being understood in a certain way that was appealed to me as a scientist, because parang merong basis na parang parang ito yung dahilan, ito yung economic reasons why people or why societies develop in a certain way, and why history is not determined by individuals but macro forces, but economic forces and so on. So, di ba parang before, pag nag-aaral tayo ng kasaysayan, parang bakit nagsimula ang World War II?
Si
Sorry,
Hitler,
World
parang
War
gano'n.
One. Kasi binaril yung Archduke ng
World
Austria.
War One. World War One, yeah.
World War One.
World War
Kasi
One.
binaril yung Archduke ng Austria. Pero parang, parang all of a sudden parang baka maging obsessed ka na, all of these small moments are actually define the course of human history. And now as an adult, parang na-realize ko na no, not really. Parang the single events might change, but the direction is one. You know what I mean? Parang if it's not this event, it's going to be another, because there are certain forces that push history towards a certain direction. So, kumbaga parang yun lang yung aking idea ng social science, yun ang idea ko ng society. So parang as a
which is very
scientist,
Tolstoy, by the way. Which is very Tolstoy. In fact, if you check War and Peace niya, one of my favorite novels, like his opening is essentially mocking Napoleon, because the idea is that usually people think the great men of history change everything, right? Ancient history, just Alexander the Great, and that's it. But what you don't understand is the political economy that created the armies that they were able to mobilize, the geological. I mean, for instance, the Mongolians expanding because of climate change. We're beginning to realize that climate change played an important role. So this massive impersonal forces. And if Napoleon was born in another place and he didn't have the grand army, he wouldn't be able to achieve what he achieved. He was just lucky to be in the right country, in the right place, and he was the egotistical maniac, right? Who could do the crazy stuff that others were not willing to do. So that's a very Tolstoyan way of looking at it, which I really appreciate, of course. It was one of the, so literature helped me also in that way. But ikaw, you were an activist, right? What drew you to activism back then? Did you have a sense that, I know this is a long time ago and all, but that's a part of you, but that's part of your history. That's also one way a lot of people got to know you. Of course, we both come from UP, so for us, that's one way we got to know you. What was that whole activism all about? Sorry, I don't want to trivialize it. I just want to.
No, I mean, sa akin parang I think nagsimula yan really parang growing up, you can see, that society wasn't perfect. I mean, ganun lang siya kasimple na kinukwento ko, nagko-commute ako before pauwi, makikita mo na daming mga mga naghihirap diyan, and you observe, and then you start comparing that with your life, and then you say, why am I in a better place than them? Although we weren't rich, but parang
relative privilege.
I had relative privilege. Meron kaming bahay. I was studying in a school. There was food on the table and so on.
Right.
So I guess parang in a way, may konting, kumbaga, I'd like to think that it was because of empathy. Parang
is this something you got from your parents, your dad, your mom?
For sure. I mean, I'm a product of
social empathy to Hindi ito yung nawawala ako sa kapitbahay ko or yung cousin ko, di ba? This is like empathy for the less privileged, for the marginalized, for the systematically excluded people. So it's much more macro, right? It's social consciousness.
I'm a product of my upbringing, and so parang everybody knows, or maybe a lot of people know, that my mother is a social activist, and she was also very, she was also a student activist back in the 1970s during martial law. So that had a definite impact on me. That had a definite impression on me. But it's also just basically reading history, being taught history, na parang back in the day, during the Spanish colonization, you had essentially these young people, sila Jose Rizal, sila Bonifacio, sila
Burgos, Padre Burgos. He was like early 30s.
These were all young people, and parang that kind of life, that the decisions that they had to make and the sacrifices that they made, parang it kind of it made an impression on me na I suddenly felt that part of life is about finding that purpose and parang applying yourself so that you are fulfilling your role in making the world a better place. No, I mean, I know that sounds like a motherhood statement, but it is what it is, right? Um, uh, parang hey, the world isn't perfect and it takes people to make those changes. So parang as a student, feeling ko my student life would not be complete if I just focused on um, going to school, socializing, joining organizations, na parang ano lang, parang just kumbaga enriching my college experience in that sense. I was very interested from an early age to have the whole college experience, and I felt that activism was part of that. Maraming mga
Especially in
reasons.
Diliman, di ba? Especially in Diliman, I would say maybe.
Oo,
Ano yung time mo?
Nako,
Ano yung time mo?
pumapasok ako ng nung freshman ako sa UP. Ang nangyayari noon EDSA 2.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yung timing mo
yung timing din parang kita mo na yung mga estudyante nag-walk out, di ko pa alam ano yun. Yung isang araw na may pasok kami, yung mga tao biglang nag-walk out sa school kasi sumali sa SONA. Tapos ako, okay, suspended yung classes, I had nothing better to do. Naglakad lang ako papunta ko Commonwealth, mag-isa lang ako. Tapos nakita ko yung protest na nagkabatuan. I'm like, holy shit. Parang what the heck, di ba? And parang you start
asking. You were not no one gave you a preview that crazy things happen in UP, like your mom or something, like, okay. Just thrown
I had a vague idea. Pero parang hindi mo naman alam hanggang sa nakita mo na hanggang makita mo.
Right. Things happen in UP. Things happen. Right. So a part of you was kind of dabbling in science, a part of you was dabbling in activism, and yet, I'm not sure if the word yet is correct, but eventually ended up as a journalist, right? And later on, more of as a documentarian journalist. How did that happen? Was there something in it na hinahatak ka? Is there something with the method? Is there something about the process of journalistic exploration of a topic that really appealed to a part of you? And is it because a part of you felt journalism is the best way you can be useful to the society and make the world slightly better than what you came into, and hopefully when you leave it's going to be a better place? I mean, I'm just trying to understand how did journalism get so much into you and you got molded into the method.
Alam mo, ang totoo niyan, it was just I just wanted to find work. It seemed like an interesting job.
Artista ka na, di ba?
Parang
That's the
wow.
thing, right?
Para siyang parang exciting yung klaseng buhay.
So ano yung mga first assignments mo? Sorry, I mean, I want to first assignments mo as a journalist, anchor ka agad or
no. Ako, I consider my real beginning starting even before I was part of the news.
Right.
So ganito nangyari. After ako nag-graduate ng UP, sumasideline ako, rumarakit ako sa isang morning show sa Studio 23. I was one of the parang young student hosts of a program called Breakfast. Parang noong una, once a week lang, guest host, tapos naging 3 times a week, tapos naging every day, Monday to Friday. Enjoy lang, ganyan. Pagka-graduate ko, all of a sudden, I had so much time kasi after the morning show, wala na akong schedule. Parang sabi ko, ano bang gagawin ko sa oras ko ngayon? Yung isa kong barkada, trabaho rin dati sa ABS-CBN. Sabi niya, may opening sa isang program, naghanap sila ng researcher sa The Correspondents. Alam ko rin yung Correspondents, papanood ko yan from time to time.
Right.
Sabi ko, dito na nga pumapasok yung experience ko with 5 and Up. Kaya sabi ko full circle. Parang sabi ko, parang interesting yun . Gusto ko maranasan yung adult version ng 5 and Up. Parang yun.
Right.
Parang, sige, apply ako na researcher. Tapos parang nagkataon pa yung producer, yung executive producer ng show, was Ana Rod, si Ana Rodriguez,
Right.
ex-prober din yon.
Right.
So parang sabi niya, sige, kung gusto mo, edi parang sure.
Right.
Kumbaga, naghanap ka ng batong ipupukpok sa ulo mo, parang gano'n. so yun, naging researcher ako. Ang una kong assignment was with Abner Mercado, kung di ako nagkakamali, tungkol sa Azucena.
Mhm.
So parang
Ano ulit yun? What is it about for people who may not be familiar? Yung mga mas
yeah,
bata na.
Azucena is the culture of eating dogs, basically.
Oh.
So pinahanap ako ng mga kumakain ng aso. Di ako na
Oh, okay.
walang karanasan sa TV, hindi naman ako nag-broadcasting, hindi naman ako
Right.
nag-journalism. Wala akong alam. Ang closest siguro na alam ko sa journalism was I became the EIC of the college publication, which is
Right, of
yung
course.
parang iba naman yun eh. So talagang basically nanguhula lang ako no nung simula. Pero it turns out na nailaos ko naman yung story tapos parang nag-enjoy na rin ako kasi again no parang familiar tong feeling na to yung out of town na naman kami kasi we have to do this story tapos they were long pero ngayon medyo adult na nga so parang dyan yung puyatan ikaw yung bababa dun sa editing matagal
Right.
kang nakatutok doon. Anyway, long story short,
But your family, were they happy with you going into journalism after the
no, my family naman they're kind of like do
support
what
to
you want.
whatever you want? Yeah.
Yeah, do
Para
whatever you
tayo.
want.
Yeah.
In the beginning, they saw how I struggled. Eventually, naging reporter ako. So I mean, going back to your question, kung
Right.
yung life, kung yung reporter life ang pag-uusapan, ang una kong trabaho talaga noon was graveyard shift. Kasi
Right.
lahat ng mga cub reporters or almost all cub reporters, yun ang unang assignment eh. Yung police beat. So parang ano ka, papasok ka ng 9 p.m., tatapos shift mo ng mga 7 a.m. Tapos yan, puro aksidente, puro mga krimen,
Violence, yeah.
violence and so on. Yan ang una mong mararanasan. So yun ang ginawa ko for a year. And then eventually I got promoted in a sense to the morning shift pero early morning naman. So pero kumbaga just to summarize, I remember you were asking kung ano ba yon parang ba't ba ako nag-reporter? Parang ano ba yon? Is that my way of changing the world? Parang ganon. I mean, to be honest, since especially back then I was very young, may ganong idealism talaga. Parang meron talagang sense na parang this is not only is this interesting, not only is this exciting, parang you feel like you're doing something that matters, di ba?
Right.
I'm not saying that I don't feel the same way now, pero syempre mas malakas pa yung ganong idealism especially when you're starting. So yeah, parang ako naisip ko na kung dati pinapanood ko lang yung news bilang student activist, nakikita namin yung mga news na lumalabas, yung iba gusto namin, yung iba parang hindi ko masyadong gusto yung pagkakwento ng reporter. Ngayon ako na yung reporter, so parang wow, parang daming ano pala nito. Ang laki ng responsibilidad din pala nito. Parang gano'n.
Right. Adulting ka na bigla. Bigla adult ka na. So for a while you did it, but eventually, of course, what you're now most recognized for, or at least bulk of your awards and everything, is really documentary, which is again a different kind of journalism, right? Because journalism could be writing columns like what I do, right? It could be reporter, it could be anchor. So hindi lang, journalism has many variants, no?
Yeah.
So you went for now a kind of a long form, in-depth variant, which is documentary, which in a way is, I see it as visual novel, right? If I can put it that way. For me, documentary is a visual novel. It's like a part of me, of course, I'm thinking about writing a novel, but a part of my thing is, but isn't that also what documentary is? Maybe you can do both or something like that, because it's really telling a story, but through images, powerful images, the same way that a novelist does it through powerful, collation of words and ideas, right? How did you get into that? Because I don't want to use the word obsessed, but parang it's really your passion work. I mean, like I've observed you. I mean, we did some projects together at one or two. I mean, I can really see you're into it. Like when you do it, like this is really, again, I don't want to use the word calling, but it really absorbs the entirety of you, because I see people are very successful, but they do what they do in a routine manner. And they're still
Yeah.
successful. But I mean, maybe in the obvious sa iba, kasi ang galing na nila, di ba? I mean, it's just a habit thing. But there are people who are already established, but what they do, they're still putting 100% themselves in. Like personally, like, even though I teach the same class in different university, 10 years on, I teach it with the same passion I taught it at the very first time. I just hope I'm more improved. Honestly, I really give 100% in. So it's really like an obsession to me, right? Otherwise, like, if what's the point, right? If it's just about making money or whatever, there are other things I can do and make money. So I'm not saying we're the same, but I kind of sense that in you, that when you do the document, like I saw you doing host and everything like that. Okay, you're great, no problem. I'm not saying you're not doing it with passion, but you do documentary in it. It's like a next level. It's like boom. And what was it with it? How did you get into this whole documentary thing? And of course, later awards and recognition and respect came. I mean, it's one thing. Tell me. Okay, I don't want to jump into it. Sorry, sir. I got excited with my own questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really just before I focused on TV documentaries. I did TV reporting, kind of run and gun journalism for 10 years. And I had, I had the time of my life. I mean, I'm not gonna say it was an easy job. Parang I don't want to sugarcoat it for anyone who's interested to do journalism.
Or trivialize it. You're not, definitely.
Trivialize it, yeah. And it's very specific kind of journalism, like you said, no? Parang even in the world of reporting, iba yung TV, iba yung radyo, iba yung print. So, that was honestly one of the reasons why I told myself, I really want to learn something new. Kasi I realized that this is really a very narrow section of what journalism is.
And untapped? Do you think it was untapped or undertapped? Na hindi masyado na-explore ng more people? Did you
Alin, yung long form?
Na documentary, at least when you started, do you think this was
not really? I wouldn't go that far, no. Parang I mean, Eyewitness, for example.
Yeah, of course, ang dami magaling. Yeah.
The pioneers of TV documentaries. I would say probably Eyewitness. Hindi naman, I don't think it's a stretch to say that they were one of the pioneers of the format in the Philippines. So it's been around for a while. It's just that ako personally, although I was doing documentary work also in ABS-CBN back then, parang not in a regular capacity. And I just told myself na, I really want to learn something new. Kasi parang if I continue doing, daily journalism, it's fine. Like I always say, it's very important. The work that TV journalists and all reporters do is crucial, So you know what's happening on a day-to-day basis. Ngayon lang nga yung election, 'di ba? Parang ano na ba nangyari? Sino na ba yung mga nag-file? Sino na yung mga nag-withdraw? So it's very important work. But parang I just wanted to try a different format. And hindi ako nagkamali kasi parang when I got into it, I realized that wow, it's a whole universe. I thought I knew what documentary was all about. Turns out what I knew was very narrow as well. Now that I'm doing this already in earnest for 5 years, nakikita ko rin na parang actually hindi pa nga ito yung end game kasi ang dami pang pwedeng gawing iba eh. So
right. The field is also evolving, right? I mean, the whole media ecosystem is evolving. But Adam, sorry, I had to cut you there because I want to understand, what was your first documentary and how did you choose the topic? How long did it take? Because Atom, the reason why I really wanted you as one of my guests is not only because we're great friends and you're Atom Aureli, it's because I'll just be honest about this, because we live in a world whereby it says people's idea of success in the world of information and all is like vlogger, right? Again, I'm not trivializing what they're doing. I'm kind of dabbling in that in my own ways, but I already have a pre-established kind of career to that, right? But parang my sense is that a lot of younger kids, especially, their ideas that is journalism, right? Just come up with like 5 different videos a day. I mean, like what you know how it works. I don't want to trivialize what they do, but it's very different from what you do in documentary or other long form kind of methods whereby actually long-term investment yan eh. Kasi we had Lord De Vera as a guest, and you know, one of the questions was, why don't you have your own YouTube channel or something like that? Because you're an amazingly witty guy and all, di ba?
What did he say?
Sabi niya, wala akong time. Sabi niya, you know how hard it is for us to come with those lines for my daily show? Parang sinasabi niya, you spend hours on that, on your I mean, hindi, like people look at comedians and think, nakakatawa lang siya. They don't know that they practice those lines, when to stop, when to pause, you know, when to raise the... It takes hours and hours of daily work, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't appreciate yung backstage effort that goes into it, no? So I really like that episode because it tells people that you see on TV or whatever who are successful, they're not just there dahil pa-cute lang sila. A lot of them actually put a lot of work into it and a lot of delayed gratification because kasi in the vlogger world, that day pa lang, live. I mean, I do FB Live now, right? Like, wala nang editing, bro. This is it. It goes. And then hundreds of thousands watch you, right? Like, and it suddenly gives you an idea, like, anong ginagawa ko sa sarili ko? Naghihirap ako ng 2 years para matapos na isang libro, tapos sample lang babasa nito. Parang niloko ko yung sarili ko, di ba? But of course, a part of me, it's that digging and excavation that makes me who I am. I'm confident about my ideas because I know I did that backstage work. But for someone, you know, who didn't have the training or stuff, they'll say, parang sinasayang mo ng oras mo. Mag-live ka lang, magpaloko-loko lang. You know what I'm saying? So I really want people to also understand why, like, how the documentary process works, how long, how much energy, dedication it needs, and why it's still worth it, and why we need new generation of people getting to documentary world early on in their 20s, 30s, and notwithstanding the changes in the media landscape overall.
Well, the first thing I would say is I don't want to be the gatekeeper of journalism here.
Just advice, yeah. I mean, it's an advice thing, right? Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, no. What I mean is, I do something very specific. I'm employed in GMA, so
right.
It's a mainstream media organization. So I can, you know, traditionally speaking, people.
Right.
There won't be any controversy when people say that I'm a journalist. But even then,
right.
Personally, if you ask me what a journalist is, I would be a little uncomfortable defining it. Kasi parang I feel like you know, parang especially in current milieu, in current times, na meron tayong social media, meron tayong and a lot of people who are not in mainstream media have a huge following.
Right. Larger following.
Who's to say
they're not journalists.
That they're not journalists, right? Syempre hindi naman pwedeng basta sino na lang na merong malaking following may tuturing ng mamamahayag. I think doon na papasok yung discipline of verification, yung commitment mo to the truth, ano? Pero even then, parang you can even say it's kind of a touch and go situation, di ba? Parang I would say that there is an advantage in working in a big organization because there's already a system. So you know, you have a set of editors, you have a set of managers, and because that's what they do and that's what they study, they've been doing that for decades. You can be reasonably sure that your output adheres to strict standards, so that you know, you're not just propagating false information. Of course, it's not perfect, and sometimes things still get through the cracks. But in the world of social media, there's not necessarily that kind of system, especially if you're just a personal blogger. But for me, parang it doesn't mean that I want to, kumbaga, shut them out of this community of journalists.
Not elitist in that sense. Yun nga, parang how can we be pluralistic and welcome democratization of the media landscape? At the same time, there has to be some guardrails, right? I mean, kung wala tayong guardrails and anything goes, then nothing goes. You know what I'm saying? What is the minimum threshold for someone to be kind of legitimately be called journalist? I mean, I
know. Honestly, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the answer.
Then that's your answer, exactly. I mean, again, there's no final answer on this.
Yeah, parang I have an idea of you know, what the kind of responsibility that people should have.
Right.
But parang who's going to be the final arbiter, it's hard to
Right.
say. You know what I will add to that is, um, I find that many of the so-called um, responsibilities, and you would even go as say, I would even go as far as saying parang media ethics that
Right.
are expected of people who work in mainstream media. Actually, it
Right.
applies to everyone already. Eh. Applies to everyone. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ay hindi naman ako reporter ng GMA or ABS, therefore hindi ako constrained doon sa kailangan i-verify
Uh-huh.
ko yung
Right.
facts
Right.
ko, kailangan balansyado yung report ko. Balansyado meaning you listen to the other side. If not, I don't mean this false balance, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
parang lahat ng yan, sa totoo lang, because we all have a platform that potentially can reach millions.
Right.
Sa totoo lang, it applies to everyone. Ang problema, nobody's around to enforce it because that's the nature of media.
Yeah.
It,
In a
it, it,
democratic
it
society, of
regulates
course.
it
Yeah.
regulates itself, right? So parang sa GMA merong mechanism na parang pag merong maling report na lumabas, may disciplinary measures diyan.
Right.
Paano doon sa wider world of social media? Wala namang magpo-police yan eh. And I'm not even advocating some
Yes.
kind of policing agency on the
Regulation.
part of the state. I think that's even more problematic.
Yeah.
But I think generally speaking, social media, especially Facebook, even Google and Twitter, parang there has to be some kind of change. I don't want to get into it so much because I'm not an expert on that. But parang things cannot continue the way they are is what I'm saying. Kasi
Well, I mean,
parang yun, grabe yung
compatriot of us won the Nobel Peace Prize, right? More or less
Yeah.
along those lines, right? So that's
Now,
one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, just to siguro answer your question more directly, with regards to documentary. In fact, hindi din nga ako masyadong naglalagay ng compartmentalization. Parang I do documentary, he does daily reporting, he is a podcast creator of podcasts.
Right.
I write long form, I'm a photojournalist, I'm a video journalist. Lalo na ngayon, all of that actually comes together. Eh.
Yeah.
Parang there's no sense to making these lines, no? So parang ako, the reason why I like this format is because of the space it gives me. It gives me more time to explore a topic, and you can observe, a certain issue for a longer period of time and so on and so forth. But it comes with pros and cons, diba? So parang parang whatever medium you choose, just make sure that you do it well, you do it with passion,
Right.
and that you're on the right side. I mean, ganun pa nga ka-general yung sasabihin ko na kahit yung ethics na yan, parang ano ba yung ethics? Parang ang mas importante na yung ginagawa mo matters and actually makes a difference.
Atom, can you give us some rough idea, like how is the process of making documentary? At least your process. Again, the reason I ask you is not for you to lecture us on what is journalism or not. Honestly, I just wanted people to understand ano yung, hindi ko naman sinasabi anong ambag mo. Sabi ko lang, anong effort mo? Anong nilagay mong energy? How long does it take? How do you choose your topics? What is the level of investment for you to come up with what you believe is a decent enough documentary to get it out to the public?
So it all begins with an idea. For a program like Eyewitness, you have more or less a set of rules already about what kinds of stories are a fit for the show. Of course, walang hard and fast rules dyan. I wouldn't be interested in that kind of environment anyway, no. So pero more or less alam namin na ito yung general identity ng program. So we think of stories that we want to do, and there are many reasons or factors that get considered with regard to what kind of topic we want to tackle at the moment. Pwedeng pwedeng breaking news siya, pwedeng it's a developing story, pwedeng it's a controversial topic na pinag-usapan ngayon, pwedeng it's human interest, parang it's a very interesting case study, very colorful story. Pwedeng something that it's new na parang people haven't heard before. So basically, ang dami mga
Right.
possible.
The range is a lot. But what was your first documentary? How long did it take? How did you choose it?
The first one, well, the first one is actually with ABS. Yung first docu, depende kasi as a researcher, ang first docu ko was with Abner, yung
Right.
Asuseng. As a host, I did a story with the correspondents when I was a kid. As a cub reporter, pero parang absent ata yung anchor, so may ginawa kaming docu tungkol sa Kalawit Island.
Right.
So this was way back, I would say 2007 or 2008.
Right.
So I did several projects also with ABS. With GMA, the first one I did is Philippine Seas. So this was parang very, kumbaga parang
Ano yan? Benham Rice, lahat yan, di ba?
Kind of, very
lahat yan.
medyo sprawling yung kumbaga sa nobela may pagka-epic, no? Kasi parang marami kaming mga in-explore mga topics, maraming mga iba-ibang lugar na pinuntahan. The first story I did for Eyewitness was about the Rohingya crisis. Yung exodus of refugees going to Bangladesh from Myanmar.
When was this again? 2017?
That's 2017.
Yeah, 2017, right? Yun yung medyo high talaga yung mga boat people, di ba?
Yeah. So yun, parang
you went to also the refugee camp dun sa Bangladesh, dun sa border.
Yeah, we went to Kutupalong camp in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh.
What about Rakhine, where you guys allowed to?
Rakhine State, it was too dangerous to go. Time na yun. We weren't sure we could get access, and anyway, there was a lot going on in Bangladesh as well.
Right.
So yun, basically you pick a topic and then you try to learn everything that you can about the story, and then just consider the format. It's going to be 40 minutes, so parang ito yung mga pwede natin i-discuss. Parang ano yung angulo natin dito. It's kumbaga parang a lot of stories have been done about the Rohingya, pero parang what else can we say? Obviously, as a Filipino journalist, parang what you can offer that nobody else can is the unique Filipino perspective, and especially since we're doing the docu for a Filipino audience. So parang all of that plays in. So parang you plan and then you shoot, and then the usual, the production process, you write, you edit, ganun.
How long are we talking about? I mean, again, I know there's no exact number, etc. But what is the range? Is it a week project? Is it a month project? In your cases, anong shortest, anong longest?
Depends on the project. Eyewitness, if it's a breaking story, for example, we did a story about yung landslide sa Itogon, Benguet in 2019. That was done in 3 days.
Yeah, kasi breaking siya, diba? You have to immediately,
may mga stories na mas matagal. Typically, ang Eyewitness takes, maybe we're lucky if we have like 3 to 2 weeks. Pero typically 1 week lang yan. Yung Atom Araullo specials, usually yan mga 2 months. The longest docu project we did for TV aired last year. Ang ano doon yung tungkol sa faith healers, parang 10 months yun.
Right. 10 months. Okay. Yeah, just to put it in perspective. Right. Wow.
Pero yung mga film documentarists, yung hindi TV documentarists, yung 1 year, ano yun, minimum yun.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
yung mga 5 years, 10 years.
Exactly.
So
often come back and forth yung sa Indonesia, diba? Yung kay grabe nun, diba? So yeah, I've become very, I mean, how should I put it? I'm becoming a fan of the whole documentary
format.
And yeah, I mean, ibang klase talaga siya, yung level of investment. I saw some who would, I mean, it's a foreign country, they have to learn the language pa kasi gusto nila sila mismo magtatanong ng questions. So the nuances are not lost. So incredible, right? Like, so the level of investment is like really next level, right? So that's why for me, nagigets ko na bakit you got so much into it na parang I got to understand you know one thing that you came coming back to GMA, being Kapuso is really about the documentary and all of that. Can we even discuss it? But anyways, yeah. Ano yung pinaka-intense mong, yung emotionally taxing I won't use the word traumatizing. I mean, we have no right, because we're talking about people who have been through 10 times more difficulties, right? But something that, because this is something that got my attention. I don't know if you know him, journalist Bill Fisk, who just passed away last year. He was a war correspondent, and he was always saying that ang kapal na mukha nitong mga foreign correspondent na yan na complain. They get to get the business class and fly back to London and New York. Tapos ang dami nilang mga dada, traumatized sila. But the people they cover are going through wars and conflict every single day, right? So parang his point is that stop whining, right? Remember that you have a duty to convey the message and everything like that. In your case, because I noticed some of the issues you cover are quite intense, no? So
Yeah.
ano yung mga pinaka-emotionally taxing sa'yo, or yung mga medyo, like you needed some time to process it? I'm not using the word PTSD or something like that, but something that you really had to process it. Because I'm sure they made you a UNHCR ambassador not for nothing, right? Because at least you're appreciated for being there on the ground, especially for children in conflict. I mean, that's really a wrenching topic, right? And one of the unfortunate things that still continues in our world. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Ato?
Marami na rin eh. Alam mo, that's one of the hazards of this line of work.
Yeah.
You're constantly exposed to human suffering, and I don't have to explain why. Stories, if it's a good story, yeah, sure, we can do a story about that. But the common example is, airplanes land routinely every day. Hundreds of airplanes land in the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. But when an airplane crashes, that's a story, right? So as a reporter, as a broadcaster, a lot of the stories that we've done over the years involve documenting human suffering. It's hard to choose which is the most traumatizing. I can think of many, like ito lang, nitong 2021, 2020 pandemic, dude.
Right,
Like
right.
parang I've done 2 documentaries about the pandemic already. One in 2021, one in 2022, like specifically focusing on the public health issues. And it's really, it takes a toll talking to all of these people who've lost loved ones, and so on. That was pretty hard. And talking about other stories that have been difficult on different kind of story. The Rohingya crisis was pretty tough.
Yeah,
I also did a documentary about Typhoon Yolanda back when I was in ABS-CBN, and that was also difficult to do. So, ano eh,
but which
yeah,
one
parang
in
just
your
have to
case,
learn
like
how to
ikaw
deal with
mismo, parang medyo na, parang I need time to process, I need time to, not want to take a break, but I just need to process this. The one that really got you, or got you more than the others. Again, all of them, of course, are wrenching in
Yeah.
their own terms, but the one that probably got you.
I think siguro the closest, siguro the first thing that comes to mind is not just the documentary, but the experience of covering was really Typhoon Yolanda. Kasi
Yeah, that was
it was unlike any event that I've covered before, and I was there for 3 weeks, even before the typhoon hit. So parang you're there from start to finish, and you really see the grabe. I mean, to this day, I haven't really seen that level of human suffering unfold in front of my very eyes. And I think it changed me in a lot of ways. Some of them I'm aware of, some of them probably subconsciously, but I think it was the only coverage where I could feel myself getting really stressed out. Like talagang nagkaroon ako ng sudden awareness about my own vulnerability, na parang sabi ko, ano na to, ibang level na to. Kasi yung yung
like another tsunami. Do you mean it that way? Or
no, I mean parang in my emotional state, like parang habang nandun kami, yung ano ko na rin, yung parang nag-despair na rin ako. Tapos I was getting irritable. I was getting really easily provoked,
Frustrated, of course, with the
frustrated.
situation.
And then parang na-realize ko na, shucks, I think this is kind of the beginnings of PTSD. I mean, not really PTSD, but parang the stress of being in this kind of
Yeah.
situation. So yeah, kasi I think compared to the other stories I've done, yun talaga, matagal ako nagstay doon eh. Almost a month. Kaya parang mas naramdaman ko yung long-term effect niya. But yeah, from time to time you do stories that leave a mark. Even if it's not as dramatic as the strongest typhoon ever to make landfall. You just meet people na parang who have are going through difficult times, and parang medyo nakaka rin siya, nakakalungkot. It affects you.
That's, I mean, I'll just tell you this, Atom. I mean, as a friend, no. How should I put it? One of the things I got to appreciate about you is that, I mean, I think for someone like you, having the let's just say the glitz and glamour, the temptation and all should be just there around the corner. I'm not saying you're tempted. I'm just saying you're in a zone of success whereby you could have had it much easier, right? Essentially, the life of, again, I'm not again trivializing folks on the other side of this industry, but I mean, you could have it the more Gatsby kind of life, I could say, and yet you chose, right? Yet you chose to go into a line of work and a line of inquiry, right, and coverage that really has human suffering at the very center of it. No, and this is the writer in me talking to you, because as a writer, what motivates me to sit down 6 hours per night, right, working just on a few pages, etc., right? I mean, why would you do that? That's like self-torturing. But to use the Hemingway way, you bleed on the typewriter because you believe this is your way of processing and making sense out of the world, and hopefully also come up with something meaningful, right, that can matter in one way or another in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, because what I write about are wars, conflicts, and all, right? So you can imagine what images are in my head when I'm writing about, let's say, China, US, South. I mean, I think about apocalyptic, Armageddon, terrorism, ISIS, things that I write about, I cover. So these are not let's say, the kind of topics that just get you bubbly and exciting, right? But they absorb you, and they absorb you in some dark ways sometimes, no? And for me, I respect you a lot because I know that there could be easily just another world out there, but for some reason that never appealed to you, no? I don't know. Di ako chismoso. So
I don't know,
malay ko, baka every 3 a.m. nagpa-party ka pala, no? But it's okay. It's part of it. Work hard, party harder. Yeah, but or the opposite, no? But I don't know. I just want to say, as a friend, this is where I have respect. I mean, of course, I got to know you as Atom Araullo, yung parang gusto ng mga kolehal, yung mga ganon. But you're gonna get to know you. It's like, okay, this guy is okay. I mean, this guy is legit. I mean, he's legit. Hindi lang pakitong loko na to. Like, he's really into what he's doing. And of course, that kind of appealed to me because I'm, in a way, I deal also with some traumatizing topic. And, I deal with politics, which is not in a showbizy way. I mean, I deal with policies and all. It's not fun. It's absolutely not fun, right? Because life.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I appreciate you saying
that. Hindi ko sinasabi sadista ay masochista ka. Let me just say, hindi tayo masochista. I'm just saying, yeah.
Hindi ko alam. Hindi ko rin naman, I mean, wala naman akong illusion din na I would do well anywhere else. Parang this is where I found myself. I had an interest in doing journalism. I wanted to be good. I wanted to be good at it. Eventually, even my perspective about what this job means and the kind of work that I'm doing also changes. It's still changing. And I would say the reporter I was back in 2007 is really different from the TV guy I am right now, no? Kasi parang Um, ano eh, I mean, I try to hold on to my idealism. I still think it matters. I mean, it has to matter. If not my work particularly, but the body of work of journalists all over the world working
Yep.
right now, it
Yep.
has to matter. Um, and short of saying, this is the set of skills that was given to me, and para I'm just trying to put it to work, if not to feed myself but to feel like I'm useful, right? Kasi parang yun naman ang that's a reason for living, to eat and to feel useful somewhat.
Right.
'Di ba? Parang um whether or not it ultimately makes a dent, it's not for me to say, pero
You're doing
um
your part. At least you're doing your part. Yeah.
I mean, I try. And even then, parang it's, kumbaga, parang I'm on TV eh. Might as well do it well. Parang ganun eh.
Paninindigan mo na.
Oh,
Right.
hindi ako naging artista. Hindi ko sinasabing pwede ako maging artista. Pero kung naging artista ako, edi gagalingan ko doon.
Right.
Kung naging academic ako, edi gagalingan ko doon kung ano man yung maabot ko
Right.
sa kakayahan ko. Um, uh,
But Atom, you dabbled in acting, right? You had a movie, right?
a movie
Your
star.
version of Citizen Kane, right?
Yeah,
which
yeah.
Randy David liked very much. He very much recommended it. Of course, there were some not so. There was
Controversies.
some noise that came out also, some behind the scenes issues. Can you tell us about that? I mean, you still dabbled in that. Wag kang magpasimple dyan. Yan.
No, I mean,
What
yeah.
was that about
I'm
then? What
very
was
I'm
that
very
about?
proud of it. I'm very proud of
Right.
the
Right.
project. I mean,
Isn't Jake? Yeah.
yes, it is in Jake. Sobra akong na-challenge,
Right.
and at some level, I was back to my my 5 and up days, no? Na parang
Right.
the whole world was one big playground for me to explore, and I I was absolutely engrossed in the process. Um, I worked with some very talented people. Of course, Direct Mike De Leon is, I would say, a genius. And I learned so many things about storytelling, and also kind of ano rin, it was kind of a humbling experience in the sense na you do realize that there are many ways to get to someone. There are many ways to communicate that is not necessarily limited to what I do as a journalist, right? So parang this is the world of fiction, but I remember saying back then, and I still believe it now, that um, in some ways fiction can move people even more effectively than real stories can.
Yeah.
You know,
Narratives are
that's
very
why people go to movie houses to feel things. And it's not unusual for somebody to say that their life changed because they watched a movie, and their worldview changed because they watched a movie. And I was just glad to be part of that. And parang ano yun, maraming it was a very interesting period of my life.
But is it a one-off thing? I mean, what's your sense about it?
It's hard to say. What I can say for certain is that there's
Shucks,
no
parang
part-time.
showbiz tayo. I'm sorry. I
There's
don't want to
no
do this, but I'm just trying to be fair since we discussed it. Don't worry.
no. I mean, there's
I'm
no
yeah.
there's no part-time work when it comes to
Yeah.
acting, for
Full
example. Parang
commitment siya eh.
if you really want to be a good actor, you have to do it regularly. You have to look for good roles, and you have to practice. You have to learn from good actors and so on. So parang feeling ko ano yun, even if I were interested, it would take a lot of adjustments, and maybe maybe that boat has sailed in a sense. So kumbaga, it was a very unique.
Tanda na tayo, bro. Ganun ba yan?
Yeah, it was a very unique opportunity na I don't think will happen again. But having said that, parang film is film, and film is a language that, although I haven't done any movie or I haven't done a film, parang I kind of understand some of the languages that are involved there, images, music, and so on. So parang it still fascinates me, and then hopefully I can do some kind of project in the future. If not a film documentary, maybe even if it's fiction, maybe as a writer or even as a producer, director. I don't know.
Right. Are there certain directors, international directors that excite you? Like some of the movies in Cannes, Venice, aside from our great John Arcilla and all of that. But are there some international directors, etc. You're following their genre or something like that, or cinematography or a line of inquiry?
I mean, mahilig ako sa movies, pero I'm not knowledgeable enough to know the industry inside out. I'm a big fan of Parasite, for example.
I just wanted to say that. Yeah. So socially relevant, diba? Yeah.
Oh, director Bong Joon-ho.
Right.
I mean, marami akong mga director na napapanood na si Denis Villeneuve.
Right.
And parang pag pinapanood ko yung mga gawa nila, actually mas familiar pa ako sa work ng mga lumang direktor mga
Polanski type.
Stanley Kubrick, Akira Kurosawa,
Samurai.
Exactly. Pero
Tarantino.
I consume it as a fan. I like watching it, and parang hopefully I can apply it in my work in one way or the other.
Kind of a cross media inspiration, right? Like sometimes I listen to Tarantino, it gives me some ideas about like, oh, this is how we approach writing, whatever. But it's like totally different genre. So now we go to the final part of this. Of course, we can talk about forever, but I know you have stuff to do. But we're not gonna go into partisan politics and all of this drama and everything like that. Don't worry, that's my job. I'll take care of that. We have other episodes for that. But
bashers pa tayo.
Yeah. Kapuso, right? As a journalist, as a concerned citizen, I mean, again, without going into partisan politics or anything like that, where do you see the state of Philippine journalism in general, and what do you think should we do, people in the journalism world, and why does our work still matter? Because I'm hearing a lot of people saying like, who cares about you anymore? You're not even relevant, right? We have all these vloggers who do it more exciting. We have president who rather get interviewed by vloggers than mainstream media, So you have been through it. You have been more than 15 years in broadcasting. You had already been dabbling in different kind of genre that is relevant to media. You were born. I mean, you came of age in the post Marcosian era, etc. So how do you feel about it? Because again, I don't want to name names, but we're also having all of this historical revisionism and all these alternative facts and alternative universe gaining traction. You as a journalist, as someone who's putting all these hours and years and effort and love and passion into what you do, how do you feel about it, and what do you think we should do? And why does our work or your work you believe still matter? Not in a messianic way. It has a point to make, right? Yeah.
It's a big question. I have to say that it's something that I struggle with, honestly. It's not a question that I can answer easily. Do journalists still matter? Well, I don't know. Like, the audience should tell us that, right? Parang we should prove to the audience why we're important. Kumbaga, it's not some kind of entitlement that gets bestowed on us because we claim to be journalists. And I recognize that the world is changing. I recognize that influence comes from many different groups, and sources of truth are not confined to mainstream journalists. So I don't think it's productive to kind of raise your fist to the wind and say na this can't happen. Parang parang we should go back to the way things were when there were journalists were respected and we were the source of information and we verified the facts for you and so on. Parang that age is
First,
long
right?
gone.
Gatekeepers in that
It's
sense.
gone. It's gone. Parang the world is it is what it is, di ba? Kumbaga, so it's not that I'm resigning myself to the fact that things have changed, but we just have to adapt and we just have to learn along the way what our role is in this brave new world. I'm not saying, I don't want to sound like I'm being passive about it. I'm certainly very
Or fatalistic for that matter, yeah.
fatalistic. Parang I certainly try to lend my voice to certain issues, and I'm still outspoken, especially when it comes to issues that I think I can lend my voice. For example, the big issues like climate change,
Right.
respecting human rights and the importance of taking care of refugees and so on. But also revisionism. Kasi parang when it comes to revisionism as a journalist, hindi ba sinong lalaban sa revisionism kundi journalists? Kasi di ba we are supposed to be truth tellers. Eh. If the truth is being subverted, then we should say so, right? So parang what I'm saying is it's going to be a struggle, and parang I recognize my place in that struggle. Parang I have to play my part in making sure that parang yung the groups and individuals and forces that are interested in destroying the foundations of truth in society, be it scientists, be it historians, be it journalists,
Right.
we should push back against that. But parang I'm also willing to learn that parang how my role is going to change now as a mainstream journalist. Wala naman akong ilusyon na mga journalist ay mga total like passive neutral and observers of history unfolding. I know that we have a place in society. I mean, at the very minimum, I'm a Filipino, so parang the things that happen in the Philippines does matter to me, right? So parang parang feeling ko we have to reckon with that na ano to parang it's not enough to say what's going on, to look for the truth.
Right.
The truth has to fit into an idea that parang things can change for the better, and that is the harder job to figure out what needs to be done. Kasi parang ang problema kasi minsan pag ang tendency isipin ng mga journalist na nasabi ko na kung ano yung totoo, bahala na kayo. Kasi labas na ako dyan, di ba? Kasi neutral ako eh. Parang, sinabi ko na nagsisinungaling siya, bahala na kayo. Alam na natin na hindi nag-work yun eh. Alam natin na...
Saan tayo nagkakulang? I mean, well, I include
again,
myself in this. I mean, I'm part of the industry in one way, right?
Of course you are.
So saan tayo nagkulang? I mean, just to be honest.
Hindi ko masabi. Alam mo, sa totoo lang, minsan it makes me uncomfortable to talk about my job kasi parang alam ko naman na, I mean, hindi ko rin naman alam kung ano yung tamang sagot eh. Maraming pagkakataon, kukulang din naman ako. I mean, feeling ko every day I'm still kind of figuring out ano bang tamang direksyon din. Pero kung tatanungin mo ako saan tayo nagkulang, honestly, it's hard to say. Siguro masasabi ko hindi natin na-realize that things were changing sooner.
Adaptation. You think adaptation?
Yeah, parang early on there were signs that parang information was going to be, it was going to be a battleground. And we didn't react quick enough, and maybe part of that maybe is arrogance as well, na parang feeling natin, bakit kami yung ano dito kami yung mga journalists dito parang pretty soon we realized na pwede pala tayong i-ignore. So parang
irrelevant, yeah.
nawala yung yabang bigla ng mga reporter, ng mga journalist na we're just one of the people competing for eyeballs, for the interest of the viewer. And
hearts and minds, yeah, fighting for
hearts and minds. We're gonna have to adapt, and I don't have the answers really, yeah. But I think we just have to continue learning and fighting the good fight.
So on last point, in our era of so much craziness, I mean, whether it's injustice, whether it's violence, whether it's trampling upon basic civil liberties, among other things, what is journalistic neutrality / objectivity? Is such thing even possible? And what is the healthy, realistic, and responsible way of approaching the issue of objectivity and neutrality?
I don't know, man. I mean, I just live by my own principles when it comes to that.
Right.
I learned that it's best for me to kind of just figure out what I stand for and just apply that in my work. Now, if other reporters, other journalists, kind of identify with that idea, then that's fine. But I tend to think about it in scientific terms, honestly.
Right.
As a student of science, we were taught that the scientific method is important because you want to make sure that you arrive at an unbiased truth. But it is the method of verifying facts, of gathering data, which is objective and neutral, not the scientist himself.
Right.
In the case of journalism, parang there are certain methods that we use, that we employ to get our facts right and to verify the information that we get. But ultimately, and this is not a unique idea, a journalist is a human being with his own biases, with his own experiences, with his own upbringing, with his own social background, and so on. So I think if we recognize that, malaking bagay na rin kasi maraming mga it will disabuse us of certain ideas about what journalism is, na sometimes can be also counterproductive. Part of that, in my personal opinion, is this idea nga na parang the monopoly of truth is with us journalists only.
Right.
So parang tingin ko in some ways baka nag-backfire din yan kasi parang maraming mga tao feeling nila yabang-yabang nyo, buti nga ngayon di na namin kayo kailangan. Parang gano'n collectively we have to kind of maybe look at ourselves in the mirror and say parang we have to realize that we are just we're just part of this society, and parang we just have to do our part, and we have to discern right from wrong as well. Alam mo yun? hindi pwedeng hands off ka dun. Kailangan na you have to apply the knowledge that you have now and just make sure that you're in the right side of history.
Are you cautiously optimistic? Kasi alam ko si Lord De Vera was something like, ano lang, algorithm lang yan. Eventually, I mean, just to use the language of, I don't know, even physics or economics, we're going to find a hopefully new equilibrium, right? I think we're in the transition process here. I think we're still beginning to feel yung full impact ng fundamental changes in the physics of information dissemination and creation, right? So are you cautiously optimistic we might find a new equilibrium, hopefully sooner than later? Because mukhang maraming windang, no?
For sure. Although, I mean, I would take a more active approach, no? Para hindi naman yan yung passive approach.
Hindi naman automatically, but I mean, do our part, hopefully.
Yeah, parang Naniniwala pa rin naman ako sa idea ng hustisya eh. kahit
The
na
arc of
mahirap.
history bends, towards
Yeah,
justice.
exactly. So I just feel that we have to expand our idea of our sense of scale, no? Na parang minsan some of these battles take more than our lifetime, and even if some of these, these smaller battles get won or lost, parang there's no reason to despair kasi, well, what else are we gonna do, di ba? Alam nga namang mag-despair na tayong lahat. Parang, you just have to keep, fighting, and
Do our part.
and do our part. And then, it's gonna get, I'm optimistic in that sense. Parang feeling ko, ultimately, the future is in our hands.
Unless climate change and all of this gets...
Oh, well, yeah. Unless the world ends tomorrow.
yun lang, yeah.
Reality.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Atom. I really appreciate it. I know you have so much stuff to do pa. The night is young, but maraming salamat, Atom. I really appreciate it. It's always good actually to talk to friends in this way. Kasi alam ko pag nagsama tayo on a social, on a professional, I don't think we're gonna have this kind of in-depth discussion kasi maraming kakulitan, daming ano.
Iba pa rin yung tayo-tayo lang.
Pero soon with sila Lord and all, mag-catch up pa tayo. Thank you very much. So here we are with Atom Araullo, one of our greatest documentarians and self-effacing journalists that we have. A very good friend of ours. Thank you very much for joining Project Pilipinas. So please, folks, abangan. We're gonna have other great guests too, but I really hope that you appreciate the honesty and the windang moments and everything that we have had in this very probing discussion. Maraming salamat, Atom. Do you have anything to say to I don't know, the younger generation, mga millennials katulad ko or yung mga mas bata?
Wala. Malalaki na kayo. Good luck. Good luck sa atin.
Ginusto niyan.
Thanks, Richard. Had fun.
Salamat. God bless. Thank you very much.